There is a fundamental belief wired into us that future generations will continue to exist, that the story of humanity will go on. While it's easy to take the sight of the next generation for granted, what if the belief is wrong in the long run? We are living at an exact turning point in human history where that is starting to happen. For the first time, our species is not replacing itself. And this is not science fiction. This is a story being told in data, in empty maternity wards, and in the backroom meetings of world governments. And this is the stage for a new kind of conflict, a conflict over the single most valuable and perhaps soon to be rarest resource of the 21st century, young people. This will be the coming war for children. By around 2040, for the first time in human history, there will be more people on Earth over the age of 65 than under the age of 15. The engine of this crisis is the collapse of the global birth rate all over the world for hundreds of different reasons. Economic anxiety, cultural shifts, the empowerment of women, the decline in religion. People are having fewer and fewer children. A developed nation needs a fertility rate of 2.1 births per woman to keep its population stable. The global average is 2.2 as of 2025, but this average is very heavily skewed by a few high fertility regions like Africa and the Middle East. The rest of the world is almost entirely below replacement outside of a couple landlocked countries and not too many other places. The rest of the world is almost entirely below replacement levels. Of course, South Korea holds the record for the lowest fertility rate of 0.72 in 2023, and they are looking at an extinction level crisis. China's population declined by about 10 million between 2021 and 25 with a fertility rate of around 1.0, and they are continuing to lose more and more population each year. The entire developed world is seeing record low birth rates, and they will soon all be feeling this story more and more with each passing year. In a world of fewer young people, the entire economic model begins to break down. Modern economies are built on a pyramid scheme, a large base of young workers whose productivity and taxes pay for the needs of a smaller, older generation of retirees at the top of this pyramid. A looming retirement crisis will hit older nations the hardest, with the potential for many to see complete economic collapse. As of 2020, in the most advanced economies of the OECD, it took roughly 4 workers to support 1 retiree. By 2060, that ratio is projected to fall to just 2 workers for 1 retiree, and it will only fall from there. Fewer young people, fewer babies means fewer workers, less innovation, shrinking markets. It means a smaller tax base trying to support a ballooning elderly population that requires more and more healthcare and social security. The global working age population outside of sub-Saharan Africa is projected to peak within the early 2030s and then enter a state of permanent decline. And this is where the conflict begins. When a resource essential for the survival of a nation becomes scarce, it becomes more valuable. And when something is valuable, that nation competes for it. They will fight, and the most valuable resource of the next 50 years will not be oil, lithium, microchips, or gold. It will be people under the age of 30. The first front in this war is already being fought, though we call it by a more friendly name. It's called skilled immigration. Nations like Canada, Australia, and Germany are engaged in an all-out global talent war, designing immigration systems specifically to lure away the youngest and brightest minds from other countries. These aren't just policies, they are recruitment campaigns. Canada, facing its own demographic crunch, has set a target to welcome nearly 1.5 million new permanent residents between 2023 and 2025, a number equivalent to almost 4% of its entire population. This global hunt for talent, though, is in a sense a zero-sum game. For every brilliant young doctor, engineer, or entrepreneur that a country like Germany gains, a country like Nigeria, India, or even Bulgaria loses that worker. This brain drain is a form of demographic asset stripping, ensuring that wealthy aging nations can sustain themselves, at least temporarily, until the immigration pool drops up, by poaching the future of poorer, younger nations. It is estimated that Africa loses around 70,000 skilled professionals to developed countries every year. But what happens when the global pool of young, skilled people begins to shrink? What happens when there simply aren't enough to go around? That's when the polite phase of this immigration war ends and a more dangerous era begins. Nations desperate to avoid economic collapse and cultural extinction will be forced to consider more aggressive strategies to acquire populations. A future where nations could offer signing bonuses and free housing to anyone 25 years old with a degree, sparking bidding wars for human beings. This is already happening. We have towns in Italy that are already selling houses for €1 to anyone willing to move there and start a family. Well, I'm not sure too many people are interested in the ghost towns of Italy. Over time, the deals will only continue to sweeten. And from there, the escalation, though, can become much darker. Let's say, what if a nation is facing a complete demographic implosion and sees a neighboring country with a young, vibrant population? Suddenly, an invasion is not just about conquering land, but acquiring population. It's a hostile takeover of another country's youth. The spoils of war would no longer be primarily about territory, but the conquered people. While this may sound to some as a bit dystopian, national survival makes it a very real possibility. Many have argued that a prime driver of Russia's invasion of Ukraine was its rapid population decline. And let's not forget, they annexed Crimea and essentially gained 2.5 million people with very little pushback. And Putin seems very willing to absorb Ukraine's population and make it a part of Russia. So to some extent, we could argue this may already be happening. And the reason is, at the end of the day, the prime directive of basically all entities in this world, or at least all entities that want to continue existing, is self-preservation. And nations are no exception to this rule. And in a world without babies, existence and self-preservation will be entirely dependent on acquiring them, whether internally or from somewhere else. The lines on the map, which we see as sacred, could become redrawn with force based on demographic necessity. But if war is not an inevitability, what does the future look like? It looks like a world of intense geopolitical competition. It means a future of select to a new form of indentured servitude, where citizens are granted essentially a fixed term of labor. The global market for international students is projected to be worth over $430 billion annually by 2030. And it will become even more cutthroat, as it's essentially a primary pipeline for many future citizens. So this coming war will force us to confront uncomfortable questions. What is the value of a citizen? What does a nation owe its young people? And what does it mean to be a country? Is it a shared history and culture, or is it a collection of people that keeps an economy running? The very idea of a stable national identity will begin to die in the face of this global war for free agents. The only way to avoid this bleak future is to address the crisis at the root cause, to build societies where people want and can afford children. It means prioritizing the family with massive investments in things like affordable childcare, parental leave, but most importantly, building up affordable housing in desirable areas where people can actually afford to live and raise a family in those places. Perhaps even incentivizing houses or apartments with more rooms, with more space to build a family, rather than a cramped one-bedroom condo. For many nations, it may be too late, though. The demographic collapse may be too powerful to reverse at this point. They are locked into a future of decline, fighting to maintain the shrinking population they have now. The war for children is coming, and it will be the defining conflict of this century. Not necessarily fought with tanks, not at first, but with visas, recruitment packages, and a desperate primal need to preserve and secure a future. The self-preservation of the nations of this world. So how do you see the future of immigration playing out? Do you believe the war for population could lead to more armed conflicts for neighboring populations in the future? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please consider liking and subscribing if anything I said made sense. This has been Blinded by Logic. Thanks for watching.